Good evening, brothers. Thanks for joining us this evening. My name is Noelle Miller, and tonight I'm going to be sharing with you all about strategic planning. We're going to talk about strategic planning as a research in terms of what strategic planning looks like in the corporate world. And then we're going to talk about strategic planning in practice and the way that we build our strategic plans for our chapters and our colonies here at Delta Sigma Pi. To start off, a little bit about me. I am a 2008 initiate of Delta Sigma Pi. I am a charter member of the Pi Tau chapter at Albion College. I started that chapter as a freshman, and we were thankfully installed my junior year. I'm the 2010 North Central Provincial Collegian of the Year, and currently I am wrapping up my term as the Interim Capital Regional Vice President. Professionally, I hold an MBA in Corporate and Competitive Strategy, and I am a PMI certified project management professional. I have almost a decade of experience as a project manager, and I currently work for Land's End in Wisconsin. I'm on Land's End's Diversity and Inclusion Council. I am a current board member of St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Middleton, and a former international board member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. On a personal note, I'm a wife. My husband, David, is the reason that I can be with you tonight. He is taking care of our 21-month-old and getting him put off to bed. I am also an athlete. I'm an equestrian, and I compete regularly with my horses, who you might see in the background here. This is Cody and Sierra. So this evening, I'm going to encourage you to use the chat function and communicate with me. I'll also encourage you to just bring yourself off mute and ask any questions that you might have. So we're going to start off with, what to you is strategic planning? Just pop in the chat, what do you think strategic planning is? All right, so I am keeping an eye on that chat. Misha, it's so great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We have some colony members in the room, y'all. A colony is a group of students who are working to establish a Delta Sigma Pi chapter on their campus. So huge kudos to Misha for being here from Bowie State. Awesome, we've got some great answers in the chat. So let's share these. Misha from Bowie says, planning for what's next. Million from Upsilon Psi says, a way to set my chapter up for success and keep from having to constantly reschedule events due to conflicts. I like that. Jacob from Kappa Pi, planning things out in the most effective way possible. And Deborah from San Diego, goals and initiatives to pursue your mission and vision. Great. Some of you have been looking ahead on my slides. I appreciate that. So strategic planning, the definition that we're going to use tonight is that strategic planning is the process of defining the organization's strategy or direction, making decisions to allocate resources in pursuit of that strategy. Strategic planning should also include control mechanisms to guide the implementation of the strategy. So we're going to talk about each of those pieces tonight. That process of defining the strategy, making decisions to allocate your resources, control mechanisms, and then the implementation of the strategy itself. So the outcome of your strategic planning process should be an action plan with targeted key performance indicators, or KPIs as we call them in the industry, for short-term and long-term performance. And again, we're going to talk about some examples tonight. As we think about strategic planning, it can help us break it down into individual elements. I really love using this particular visual when I talk about strategic planning in the corporate world, so we'll use it tonight as well. Before we build a plan to improve our organization, we have to understand what our organization desires to be. So when we think about our personal lives, right, you have goals, you have aspirations of who you see yourself becoming. When we think about our chapters, we have goals, whether that's chapter of excellence, whether that's winning a national award for professional activities, whatever that might be. When we think about our organizations, right? I work for Land's End. We desire to be your number one spot to shop for comfy clothes. We want you to get comfy with us and be relaxed in our stores and in your shopping experience with us. So we have to understand what our organization desires to be. The first three elements help us understand that. Our vision statement, an example from my old employer, to be the most trusted and valued customer-driven insurance company. Short, to the point, in one sentence, what is your vision? Your mission statement, again, and typically one sentence. An example is to inspire, protect, and restore your dreams from American Family. And finally, your core values. Everything that you do in your strategic plan should hark back to your core values. If something that you're looking to do as an organization does not align with your core values, then you should reevaluate whether or not that should be in your plan. Core values for American Family: innovative, caring, agile, trustworthy, transparent, and passionate. We'll talk about what these items are for Delta Sig in just a minute. After we understand what our organization desires to be, then we want our strategy to be rooted in who we are today, right? So if we don't know where we are, we can't know where we're going. To figure out where we are today, we go through a strategic analysis. Sometimes companies will send surveys of their employees, of their key stakeholders. Sometimes we'll do stakeholder interviews. We'll talk with customers, employees, partners that we work with. Sometimes we'll do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we'll look at that from a market perspective and from our own efforts. And that will all help us understand where are we today so that we can plot our path to where we want to go and how to achieve that aspiration that we have for ourselves, that vision. So now that we know where we want to go, our vision, our mission, our values, and where we are today, then we get down to the planning and we decide how to move from where we are to where we want to be. We use action plans, which are going to be accomplished throughout the plan term, the strategic plan term. Now, typically in a corporate setting, that strategic plan term is 5 years. Some are as long as 10, 15, or 20. Short-term objectives are going to be weekly, monthly, quarterly, maybe yearly, to help us stay on track towards that long-term action plan and to accomplish our overall strategic plan. And then our long-term goals should roll up those short-term goals into what we want to achieve in our 5 years, 10 years, etc. So again, this is from a corporate perspective. Strategic plans in a corporation are typically developed by the leadership team of a corporation. Might be the C-suite, might be the board. Delta Sig is very similar to this, as we'll talk about in a minute. So you'll see here on the right, the top 3 levels of this pyramid make up our strategic plan. That vision and mission that we talked about, our values, and then what goals do we want, right? So our goals are going to be the last piece of a corporate strategic plan. Our action plan is going to be our objectives and our action steps themselves. So our objectives are typically SMART goals or SMARTIE goals. Don't worry, we'll define those in a little bit. And then our action steps take those goals and break them down into work packages or little things that we can do along the way to accomplish those objectives, which help us reach our goals, which help us live our values, which help us realize our vision, okay? So once our strategic plan is published, the organization then has a roadmap for decision-making. So you should be able to tie every decision that an organization makes back to our strategic plan. Does the decision help us move in that direction? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then that action's off the table. If the answer is yes, then we can take further steps to determine how to accomplish that. Projects, resources, team, and individual goals should align with and support our corporate strategic plan. I've been fortunate enough to run goal setting for multiple project management offices, strategy teams in my career. And the thing that we always do is we start by learning about our company's strategic plan and then talking about how we fit into that. How does our work make a difference in those corporate goals? And then we set our goals to roll up to those goals. Finally, goals should be measured. We talked about control earlier in our strategic plan definition. We're going to use control by measuring our goals on a regular basis. And then we're going to report the progress out to the stakeholders. And we'll talk about how we practice this in Delta Sigma Pi. So I've given you a lot of information from a research perspective, right? Corporately, this is a crash course in how we look at strategic planning. Now let's look at strategic planning in Delta Sigma Pi. Our vision statement as Delta Sigs is to be America's foremost professional business fraternity. Our mission statement is our purpose. Delta Sigma Pi is a professional fraternity organized to foster the study of business and universities, to encourage scholarship, social activity, and the association of students for their mutual advancement by research and practice, to promote closer affiliation between the commercial world and students of commerce, and further a higher standard of commercial ethics and culture in the civic and commercial welfare of the community. Finally, our core values are leadership, diversity, service, professional training, and giving. If anything that you're doing in your chapter is out of alignment with those values, our mission, our purpose, or our vision, then it's a good gut check for you to take a step back and reevaluate your goals and plans. So we talked about way back in that 7 items, right? Those 3 things are our vision, mission, and values being who we aspire to be. Then we talked about strategic analysis telling us where we are today. Our strategic analysis as an organization is carried out by the National Organizational Development Committee. This committee holds discussions and interviews with current board members, staff, committee chairs to gather input and set and adjust our strategic priorities as an organization. They actually just finished their work in the spring, early summer of 2021. And so we have a new 5-year strategic plan or strategic priorities. This is our strategic priorities for 2021 through 2026. And we're going to go into each of these in a little bit of detail, but you'll notice that there are 4 pillars: member education, growth, engagement, and organizational excellence. We have a foundation on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the leadership foundation, strong governance, and last but certainly not least, our purpose, our mission statement. As we look at the strategic priorities of Delta Sigma Pi, the first is membership development. We seek over the next 5 years to increase the annual number of overall learners through live events and webinars like the one tonight by at least 5% each year and 50% over the term of the priorities. We also seek to provide training for chapter officers and volunteer leaders with 95% participation. As we go through these strategic priorities, I want you to think about how do you as an individual and how does your chapter play into these priorities? How can you move the needle? Where can you help us move forward and achieve? So kind of write some notes, think about some things. I'm going to ask you to throw them in the chat in just a minute. Second is our membership growth. We're looking to install or reactivate at least 30 chapters. Misha, this is a great one for Bowie. We're also looking to increase combined fall and spring dues, paying collegiate members by 10% over the next 5 years, and ensuring that at least 90% of collegiate chapters have 30 active members. So we're really looking to put an emphasis on recruiting and help us grow coming out of the pandemic, support our chapters, and make sure that they're healthy to continue in the long run. So again, this is an area where very easily you should be able to think about how does my chapter impact this strategic plan for the organization. Third pillar is membership engagement. We're looking to create trackable engagement of 30,000 alumni over the next 5 years. And we're also looking to increase 10% every year as we interact with the organization. Finally, we're looking to engage half of the new alumni within 3 years after their graduation, while retaining 45% of the prior year's overall engaged alumni. So we want to make sure that we are investing in our young alumni and helping them transition from collegiate to alumni status, we don't want to do that at the overall detriment of our alumni base. We want to make sure that we're still engaging folks and keeping folks who have been with us year over year. Our fourth and final pillar is organizational excellence. We're looking to decrease financial dependence on revenue sources directly connected to membership dues and chapter fees, so that in the long term, we can protect that and we don't have to raise them, generating an additional 5% of total revenue annually from outside sources. We also are looking to have 75% of collegiate and alumni chapters achieve accreditation at a minimum. Okay, so that's our minimum health indicator, is the accreditation status. And for alumni chapters, the minimum health indicator would be coming back and refranchising the next year. So now that we've talked through those pillars, I'd love to see in the chat, what are some of your ideas of how your chapter plays into our strategic priorities? We'll go ahead and start with membership development. How can you as an individual, or how can your chapter move the needle and help us achieve these goals? Go ahead, pop it in the chat. And I will send all of the slides and all of the supporting materials that we're going to go over during this session to Aaron after we finish, and he can share them with everyone who registered. So Aaron, I'm going to put a little bit of work on your plate. Sorry, my friend. Thank you, Aaron. All right. All right, so Milan says, offer more workshops rather than just talks. For examples, resume or LinkedIn workshops. Yeah, great. Other ideas of how you or your chapter can move this needle? I'll give you a hint. All of you are doing it right now. That's awesome. Glad to hear it, Milan. Hands-on events, right? So one of the ways that you can help us move the needle is be part of the numbers for this very first one, right? Increasing the annual number of overall learners. If this is your first webinar, congratulations, you just helped us move the needle, right? If there are brothers in your chapter who haven't been to a webinar, who haven't been to a lead school, haven't been to a grand chapter congress, encourage them to attend. Our provincials are coming up. They're going to be phenomenal. I'm going to be in Chicago and the Bay Area at a minimum. Still got my fingers crossed for Pittsburgh. We'll see. But at the end of the day, attending a lead event this spring helps us accomplish that first goal. If you are a chapter officer or a volunteer leader, make sure that you're participating in the training that the organization is offering to you, and you can help us move the needle on that second goal. So really great ways to directly get involved, see how you can learn from the fraternity and help us achieve our strategic initiatives at the same time. Okay, so how are some ways that you or your chapter can help us with membership growth? I'm sure I've got a couple of senior vice presidents on here. This one should be a walk in the park for you. Yeah, so as we look to make sure that we're going through our recruiting, right, we're going to be looking to increase the number of folks that we're recruiting in each of our chapters and try to make sure that our individual chapters have at least 30 active members. It's great. Year-long recruiting never stops. That is 100% true. We need to make sure that we're constantly recruiting. Every event, every interaction with a business student is an opportunity for them to get to know about Delta Sigma Pi. Yes, talking to friends in the business college and telling them it's an amazing opportunity, sharing with them your experience, right? We live in a world of social media where everyone wants to be what they see. And yet sometimes we don't even talk to our friends about the great things in our lives and share them. Exactly. And then for Misha and any other colonists who are watching, installing or reactivating those 30 chapters, you are a huge part of that effort, right? And as brothers, if we have friends at other schools that don't have a Delta Sig chapter and we talk to them about our experience, don't just let them be sad that they don't have a Delta Sig chapter. Connect them with central office. Let's get a chapter on their campus and help them have this brotherhood and this wonderful connection to the larger organization. Great participation, guys. I appreciate it. So as we look at member engagement, this one might feel a little more difficult to you, but from a chapter and individual perspective, maybe you're graduating in the next 5 years. I certainly hope all of you are graduating in the next 5 years. So you have an opportunity to stay engaged with us, right? As you move from collegiate to alumni status, stay engaged with us, be involved on a committee, be involved in a volunteer leadership role, be involved as a donor to the Leadership Foundation, right? Continue to give back to the organization that has shaped you. That's going to help us accomplish both of these goals. So that's how you individually plan your chapters, making sure that you hold strong alumni events, encouraging your alumni to come back, telling them about the chapter leadership funds, asking them to support you in those efforts. All of that is a great way for your chapter efforts and your chapter resources to directly roll up into our strategic priorities. And then finally, organizational excellence, right? This first one here might be the trickiest one for chapters to look at, but you have a vital role in taking care of our brand and helping our brand be something that corporations and partners want to be a part of. So keeping our brand strong from a collegiate perspective is a phenomenal way to help us accomplish the first item here. And then for the second item, what do you guys think? Can all of you commit to help your chapter become an accredited chapter, to drive your strategic plans to make sure that you're accomplishing all of the steps that you need to take to make sure you reach accreditation? I think you can do it. So that's a pretty simple one to help us accomplish the second objective here. Okay, so we have grounded ourselves in the knowledge of how strategic planning looks at a corporate perspective. We've done our research. We've also taken the time to understand how corporate planning looks in Delta Sigma Pi, what we aspire to be as an organization, and where we are today, right? Our strategic analysis. We've also looked at our very high level corporate goals. So now we're going to get into the strategic planning practice. We're going to talk about what chapters do in our strategic planning efforts. Our chapters put together a strategic plan every semester, and these are done at the officer level. So all 10 of our officers that are required nationally have a strategic plan that they need to submit in the hub by December 15th. I will tell you, it needs to be approved by regional vice presidents by December 15th. So if you are a chapter officer, please, please, please make it easier on your president. Get your plan done a minimum of a week in advance, December 8th, so that your chapter president can approve it, and then it can go to your regional vice president, and your regional vice president isn't panicking and harassing you to get those in on the 15th of December. All right, so based on what we just reviewed in terms of corporate strategic plans and our understanding and research of corporate strategic planning, the Delta Sigma Pi strategic plans typically outline chapter objectives and action steps. So if we think back to that pyramid, that delta that we looked at, our mission, our vision, our values, those are all known, right? They're the same for every single one of our chapters. Our high-level strategic plan, our objectives for the next 5 years, those are known. We just reviewed them. They're our strategic priorities. So we're in those bottom two steps. We're in those goals for our chapter, and we're in those action steps for our chapter. So that's what we're going to be looking at, those objectives and action steps. So a couple questions for reflection. And please put your answers in the chat. What level of CMP does your chapter desire to achieve this year? Accreditation, recognition, excellence, or for Misha, right? Accomplishing your colony tasks. So let's see what levels of chapters we've got here tonight. Along with your level of CMP, I want to know, what awards does your chapter want to pursue? And what impact do you want to have on your campus and your community? Go ahead, throw some ideas into your chat. Awesome. We've got Upsilon Psi wants to achieve Chapter of Excellence. They weren't accredited last year, and they're shooting for the stars and looking to make some sweeping changes. It's great. I hope that tonight's presentation helps you do that. Accreditation. So Kappa Pi is going to be accredited. Great. So is Upsilon Psi going to go for most improved chapter? Is that one of the awards you guys are going to pursue? What other awards are we going to collect out of these chapters that are participating tonight?
We were the only one in our entire region to apply for any awards this past year. We got it. So I figure, I told my VP, can't remember the words anymore, but that we got to apply to all of them.
Absolutely. Yes, you totally should. You should always apply to every award that you qualify for. Excellence, Chapter of Excellence for Theta Pi. Awesome. Ashley, what awards is Theta Pi going to be going for this year?
I'm not too sure quite yet. I'm a new member. I just got initiated last weekend, so I guess we'll be going for all of them. I'm not totally sure, but I hope we're going for all of them.
That's the right answer, Ashley. Welcome to the Brotherhood. We're glad to have you. Awesome. And what impact do you guys want to have on your campus or your community this spring? Feel free to just come off mute and shout it out.
I know for our campus, we just did a cleanup event. So to help make the campus green. So that's one of them.
Great. So beautifying your campus, making it more welcoming. Awesome. Yeah, so you might want to move the needle on diversity, equity, and inclusion on your campus, right? You might want to provide greater professional experience for the business students at your campus. You might want to drive more involvement on your campus. That's a great goal. So all of those things, those questions for reflection, these are good questions to ask your executive committee, to ask your candidates if you're electing new officers in the next couple of weeks as the semesters end or the quarter wraps up. These are also great questions to just ask other brothers in your chapter and say, hey, as we're thinking about spring, what are we looking to execute on? All right. So again, go ahead and just come off chat, scream it out. Who do you feel like are your chapter stakeholders? So as we go through the process of executing a strategic plan, building those objectives and action steps, we need to take stock of our goals as a chapter, right? How those roll up to the strategic plan. But we also need to take stock of what are the thoughts of our stakeholders, right? How are they going to be able to help us? How are they looking for help from us? How can we partner with them? All of those sorts of opportunities, how can we serve them? So who are your chapter stakeholders? Yeah, so certainly your alumni are a chapter stakeholder. Yes, for sure. Your dean, yep, your dean, maybe your faculty, right? Excellent. Yeah, great point. I would encourage you to consider every single business student on your campus to be a stakeholder in Delta Sigma Pi, right? You should be having a lot of events that are pretty public and that they can benefit from, whether or not they're a brother. Yeah. And of course, your chapter brothers. Yes, your chapter brothers, your pledges, and your chapter alumni. Great answers, team. All right. So as you think about your stakeholders, you might want to check in with them about what their thoughts are on your chapter's current state, right? One question that I encourage all the chapters I work with to ask their dean and their faculty is, how can we serve the campus? How can we help the business school, right? I've had chapters where the answer to that is, oh, we really need help on freshman move-in day, particularly for the business majors. What a phenomenal opportunity to get to know people right as they come on campus, and to snatch them before they even get to that club fair, and help them get to know a little bit about Delta Sigma Pi. Hopefully they'll come by the booth at the club fair, get to know the chapter better, or even come to an event. You might be asked to hold a resume workshop or review resumes or help with mock interviews for freshmen and sophomores. Again, great opportunities to link into the business school, show your value, and kind of get ahead of the curve. Your career management office, you might want to build a relationship with whoever brings the corporate recruiters on campus, right? And say, hey, can Delta Sig help by putting on a little reception or welcome for the recruiters when they get to campus, and telling them a little bit about the school before they meet with everybody else. If you're lucky, that recruiter is then, or that professional speaker is then going to open their event with, yeah, so I just spent the last 30 minutes with the Delta SIGs on your campus. They're phenomenal. If you're not part of that, you should definitely check it out. And here's some of the things we talked about, right? Here's some great questions they brought up. Again, great marketing, great opportunity for us as brothers to develop, to provide value for our brothers and for our campus as a whole. So some ideas to kind of gather some thoughts on current state. And then this is kind of a question for our brothers, but it should also be a question for our faculty. Is everyone aware of our national fraternity strategic priorities? Do we know how our actions at the chapter level or at our campus level can impact and support the national organization, right? And then finally, what are your member and your officers' goals? If you have a chapter where you have 5 people who are looking for a career with the Big Four, gosh, I hope that you're using our network and getting some folks to come in and talk about accounting and the opportunities within the Big Four, right? Reach out to me. I'd be more than happy, if that's the sort of thing you guys need, I'd be more than happy to help you connect with alumni across the country, help you put together a virtual panel where you can provide that value to your members. What are your officers' goals, right? A lot of times when we do our campaigns for our chapter offices, we say, I want to increase our recruitment by 50%, or I want to make sure that we win 2 national awards. Whatever those goals are, those things should be included in your strategic plan so that you can put your resources in the right place and support those. So now that we've heard from our stakeholders and kind of thought through what they need and are looking for and expecting, right? Unspoken expectations are just future disappointment. So make sure that you're talking about those expectations among your membership, among your faculty, among your stakeholders. But now that we know what those expectations are and what they are hoping to achieve, then we can do our strategic analysis for our chapter. So you're going to build a little mini SWOT review for your chapter. Again, our purpose is by research and practice, right? We are preparing you for the professional world by offering you opportunities of research and practice. This is the research tonight, and your practice is actually executing this work with your chapters. So you create a SWOT review. Well, Noelle, what's a SWOT? Pretty simple. You're going to think about the feedback that you got from your stakeholders and the feedback from your events over the last year. And you're going to say, okay, what are our strengths? What are the items that set us apart on campus, set us apart from other organizations, set us apart from other Delta SIG chapters? Maybe it's a signature event that you do and you're well known for. Maybe it's your community outreach, right? Maybe you have some amazing partnerships in the community and you make a difference. Maybe it's your connection with your faculty and the fact that they always play up Delta SIG and that helps you recruit. Whatever that might be, those are your strengths. What are your weaknesses? What are some things that you want to improve, right? For any chapter that's under 30, you might want to include recruiting on what are your weaknesses. You might want to look at, how strong was our community service impact last year? Was it the level that we wanted it to be? Even if it was good, do you want to raise it further? Do you feel like it's par or above par for other chapters, other organizations on campus, right? Opportunities are going to be potential resources or ways that you can move the needle closer to achieving your aspiration, right? Your goals, your vision, your mission for your chapter and for the fraternity. So that might be partnerships. It might be wonderful recruits for the chapter. It might be new faculty members that you want to engage, right? It might be reaching out to your parents and telling them about the Chapter Leadership Fund, or looking at your alumni base and the opportunity to engage them further. And then what are the threats, right? Anywhere where we have competing business fraternities, those are threats. They have the ability to keep us from accomplishing our recruitment goals. Misinformation, risk management violations, those are all threats as well. So we want to make sure that we're cognizant of the things that we need to avoid or mitigate as risks as we look to achieve our strategic plan. So again, we have done our research. We know our mission, vision, and our mission, vision, and values. We have now done our strategic analysis. It is time to get into those objectives at the chapter level. We're working our way down that pyramid. So we talk about SMART goals, and I'm just by a show of hands or a quick shout out, does anybody not know what SMART goals are? I'm happy to go. I'm going to go through them at some level of detail, but if you guys already know a lot about them, I don't want to spend too much time. So SMART, okay, so SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, specific goals tell us what exactly we want to achieve. Okay, so good goals are clear and well defined. They can't be mistaken for something else. Measurable goals tell us whether or not we've achieved the goal, right? So I need to be able to say, did I or didn't I meet this goal, right? If I say, I want to read books this year, like, okay, well, then if I read one book, have I achieved it? If I read 7 books, have I achieved it, right? Versus I want to read 17 minutes a day, or I want to read a book a month, right? Those are measurable goals. Achievable. How can the goal be accomplished? So I am 5'11" and not the most athletic person on the planet. It would be a silly goal for me to say, I'm going to go to the 2024 Olympics on the US gymnastics team. It's not achievable. Like just being real with myself, that's not achievable, right? So making sure that our goal is something that we can actually achieve, and something that we can look forward to accomplishing. A relevant goal. Why is the goal important to you? So as a chapter, right, we would choose a goal that is within our boundaries or our purpose. We wouldn't, if we said our goal is to have 3 people in our chapter learn how to install electrical in houses, we might look at each other and say, is that relevant for Delta Sig? Like, that's a cool skill, but I don't know if that's relevant for Delta Sigma Pi, right? Maybe it is, but let's talk about it. And then finally, time bound. When do you want to achieve your goal? So it might be that we say, I want to graduate from Albion College, and that is specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant for me. But if I don't put a time on it, like, okay, do I want to graduate in 2040? Do I want to graduate in 2060? I want to graduate from Albion College within 4 years. That is a SMART goal, right? It meets all 5 of those criteria. In the corporate world, we are seeing a shift from SMART goals to SMARTIE goals. So I do want to share this new concept with you tonight. This is the first time that I've talked about it in a presentation, but I'm really excited to see this shift happen in the industry. So the first 5 are the same, right? We're still SMART, but now we're adding inclusive and equitable. Okay, we're moving the needle from a DEI perspective. These 2 letters are challenging us to look at our SMART goals and say, is there something in our process or in our world that might allow us to accomplish this, but not be inclusive in that effort, right? So can we add something into our goal to make sure that we're inclusive? Similarly, our equitable item says, is there something in our organization, our world, our processes that might keep us from being equitable as we accomplish this goal? is there something that we can put into our goal that will help us make sure that the outcome and the efforts are equitable? So those two can be the most challenging, I think, and I think that's a good thing for us in the corporate world and as students of commerce to challenge ourselves to push and reach those extra I and E, those extra letters in our abbreviation. Okay, so I'm gonna give a couple of examples of SMARTIE goals, and then I want y'all to go ahead and pop some in the chat. Think about what you want to accomplish in Delta Sig. Think about what your chapter might want to accomplish, and you can pop those in the chat. So I'm going to give you 2 examples, and then I'm going to look for you to give some. So the first example is be on track for chapter of recognition in CMP at the end of the semester. Okay, so that would be a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goal for the fall semester, right? Be on track for chapter of recognition in CMP at the end of the semester for the fall. We can't achieve chapter of recognition in just the fall semester, so we're not going to tell ourselves that. But in the spring, we can. So then our goal updates a little bit and it becomes achieve chapter of recognition in CMP for the fiscal year, right? And so we've got our time measure, we've got our relevancy in that it's CMP, we've got our achievability because all of our chapters can achieve this. We've got our measurability because CMP is a measuring process in and of itself. And then we've got our specific because we're calling out that it's CMP itself, okay? Another example here, and I've included the I and the E here, is hold elections 30 days before end of semester, with each office having multiple and diverse candidates. For example, pledge class, gender, sexual orientation, majors, persons of color, etc. So we're looking to hold elections. So that's a pretty specific action. It's time bound, 30 days before the end of the semester. It's measurable because we're going to have held them or not, right? And we're either going to have had multiple and diverse candidates or not. It's achievable in that all of our chapters have diversity of some way, shape, or form. And we have control of our calendar, so we should be able to hold our elections 30 days prior to the end of the semester. It should be achievable because even if you've got 10 folks, multiple folks can run for a position. And then as you get down the list, folks might decide to remove their name, but they can throw their hat in the ring. So certainly relevant because we want to make sure that we've got the best candidates and good ideas and competition within the fraternity, and it's time bound. So we talked about that. The inclusiveness comes in, stating as a chapter that we want multiple candidates. So we're asking people to compete. A lot of times we kind of shy away from that as brothers and we say, oh, it's really so-and-so's turn. But if you're really interested, throw your hat in the ring. Let's make sure that we get good ideas out there. And the same thing with diverse candidates, right? We're saying, hey, we have a commitment to this and we want you to run. And then that equity piece, right? Everybody, regardless of what pledge class you're from, gender, sexual orientation, major, etc., everybody, we're committing to you that we want you to run. So that's my first shot at a SMARTIE goal. So go ahead, put your SMARTIE goals or your SMART goals in the comments and let me know. It can be a personal goal, it can be a chapter goal, it can be an office goal. Yeah, so this one's great. Very, very good. One that all our chapters could utilize. Make sure everyone pays dues by the established chapter deadline. Establish a specific fund for dues scholarships for brothers without the means. Have enough funds by the end of the quarter to cover the dues of 4 brothers. That is a great way to incorporate the I and the E. Really appreciate that. And I work with a chapter in Capital Region that has done just that. They've created what they call the Skull Fund to provide dues scholarships for brothers. And it's a really phenomenal program. So if you have questions about that or want more information, I'm happy to connect you with that chapter as well. All right, great example. I think that Milan was looking at my notes again, because sure enough, that's the next example that I have: decreasing chapter attrition for the school year through the creation of a chapter scholarship fund. Sometimes the reason folks can't stay with us is because they can't afford to, right? Having 5 brothers attend the 2022 Grand Chapter Congress, that in and of itself is a SMART goal, but then we add that I and E by saying with financial support from the chapter leadership funds. Okay. Recruiting a diverse pledge class of at least 10 new members, with at least 9 successfully completing the pledging process each semester. Okay, so we've done all of our research. We are ready to actually execute our work, okay? At the end of this session, at the end of the PowerPoint, I'm going to share with you the templates that exist for each officer to build their strategic plan. And if you could help me out by throwing your office in the chat. I know we have at least a president on the line. I think we've got some other officers as well. I will pull up your templates, and then you'll get the rest for all of the other officers in the email Erin will send in the morning. The template is going to help you plan the necessary events to achieve whatever level of CMP you're looking for. So the templates are built with all 3 levels in mind, and then you just need to fill in the sections to the level that you want to execute. Okay. Once we've populated those strategic plans, and again, we're going to look at those templates, then our work begins, right? Then we have to actually execute on our plans. So to execute on our plans, we're going to first make sure that we're operating for success. We're going to be utilizing our resources. Our #1 resource in Delta Sigma Pi is our fellow brothers. You should be utilizing committees. I don't care how big or small your chapter is. You should be utilizing your committees well, whether that's just your exec committee, because there's maybe only 12 or less of you, or if that's a professional committee and a community service committee and 17 other committees, because you're a chapter of 70 plus, right? If you haven't, I encourage you to watch the 2021 National Collegian of the Year Brennan Fetter's motivation webinar on Delta Sig University. It blew me away the first time I saw it, and he reprised it at the Capital Regional Conference this last weekend, and it was fabulous again. It'll definitely help your chapter engage your members and improve the motivation of our brothers. And then your alumni and faculty, right? Don't forget about those brothers that you've initiated as faculty initiates, or just those alumni who are willing to support your dreams and expectations. All right, and then event reviews and recaps. We'll touch on those in the template, but you should always be hearing a quick start, stop, continue from it, at a minimum your committee, but ideally your chapter, about each event that you execute. And then remember that slow and steady wins the race, right? Planning ahead of time allows you to spread your requirements out, and you can provide consistent value to the members and the community that you serve. It's no fun to come back to campus and feel like you have to fit 2 semesters worth of work into 3 months because you didn't do enough in the fall, right? It's also no fun to come back and be totally stressed out for 2 weeks during recruitment and then be coasting the rest of the semester and feel like, well, what am I doing as a Delta Sig in, after spring break, after initiation's done? So let's make sure that we're providing that consistent value and spreading our requirements out. I talked earlier about the fact that we're going to have control metrics, right? And we're going to monitor our progress as we go through our plan. So as we track our progress in Delta Sig, the way that we practice this is first with the VPCO's officer report. Your VPCO, every chapter meeting should be, or colony meeting, should be talking about what's been completed in CMP since the last time you met, what needs to be done by the next time that you meet, and then what is coming up in the next 2 weeks, month, that y'all need to be thinking about. Your officer reports should also be reporting out on their goals. What events are coming up? How is that part of our strategic plans? For an example, you might say as SVP, we have 8 applications for PNMs. That's too short of our goal for the semester. Please help us reach our goal by reaching out to your friends and business peers who might be interested, right? All of that is a good way to keep everybody apprised of what's going on. You should know whether you're on track, at risk of meeting your CMP and strategic planning goals, or if you need intervention, right? If you need to reach out to your DD or your RVP or your faculty advisor and say, hey, we're really falling behind and we need some help to move some boulders and some issues out of our way. All good. Again, project manager for almost a decade. This is what I do every day. It's kind of the stuff that gets me out of bed in the morning. So I'm a little geeky about it. But when our chapters do this, y'all can go into your interviews, your internships with so much experience and so much knowledge to share as you start your professional careers. All right, so let's jump into our toolkit review. First, we're going to look at our officer strategic planning templates. Then I'm going to show you our event planning template and our chapter meeting minutes template. If you choose to use one of these, all of these, I promise it'll help your chapter. I'm also super excited to hear feedback from you about how it went for your chapter. So I'm going to pull these up. While I'm doing that, please drop in the chat. I know I have a president, but if I have any other officers, I'd love to be able to show you your specific template tonight on the webinar as well. Okay, so it looks like I have two presidents for sure. I have a VPPE, awesome. Anyone looking to run for an office, I'm happy to show you those as well. Love to see VPCO. Okay, great. Looking to run, awesome. Ashley, what are you looking to run for? Looking to run for VPF, okay. Great. So I'm going to start with president. Okay. And some of the items are similar across the templates. So definitely pay attention as we go over the others, and then I'll show each of them. So the strategic planning form for the president is kind of the highest level, right? Because you're the executive officer of the chapter. So you're going to populate your personal goals for the semester, the chapter CMP goal, and you'll notice here in parentheses, it says that you should work with the VPCO on this, right? You should be in connection. Christine, yes, there will be a recording. Erin is recording it, so it should be up on Delta Sig University at some point in the coming week. And I have time, I can hang out afterwards if you have questions as well. So work with the chapter VPCO to determine which level, right, y'all are interested in. You'll see that there's 2 asterisks for excellence that continues through all of the templates. So if there's ever something that just applies to excellence, it'll have 2 asterisks on it. If it applies just to recognition, it'll have 1. Chapter awards goals, again, you should work with the VPSA. Your officer report, the date that you completed that and submitted it on the hub, or the date that you plan to complete it. Your meeting minutes submitted, again, that's excellence. How many days after exec committee meetings are you planning to submit them on the hub? And then how many days after chapter meetings are you planning to submit them on the hub? Your events, right? The number of events that you're looking to have and the number of events that are left for your CMP year for your semester or quarter. And then your conference attendance goals. You should be setting this with the vice president of professional activities. Special committees, you as the president get to stand those up. So if you have a milestone anniversary coming up, you should definitely be creating a committee for that. And any other big plans that you have, maybe a Founders Day fundraising committee for next fall for those who got to have some fun this fall with our pledge drive. The college and university administration relations. As president, I hope that you're meeting with all 5 of these folks at some point during the semester, just to check in with them, let them know what the chapter's up to. And again, ask that question of how can you help, right? Your strategic plan review. Are all of your officers' strategic plans complete? I sure hope you can say this. If no, which ones are you waiting for? And then the date that your strategic plan was submitted on the hub. Chapter of recognition options. If you're going for this, know which ones your chapter is committed to. Same thing with chapter of excellence. And then any necessary options accounted for in your officer's strategic plans. Okay, so you've got a little bit of cross-pollination to do. These are just templates. Okay, I built them. The fraternity was kind enough to say, yeah, they look great. You can share them with chapters. They're just templates. You'll take the information you put here and then you'll translate it into the form on the hub. But filling this out will get you well ahead and all of the things that you need to accomplish what's in the hub. Okay, so that's our president's form. Any questions while I pull up our VPF form? Then I'll pull up our VPPE. Okay, awesome. Thanks for the feedback, Milan. So our VPF, you start off very similar, right? Your goals for the semester. Then you've got our national financial submissions. So your dues roster needs to be updated within a certain amount of time. Please, 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 if there's anything you guys take away for a financial tip, make sure that your roster is up to date when you start your semesters. We bill you based on the folks that you tell us are collegiates in good standing. I've had chapters who have had 10 people on their list who are graduated, right? And then you get billed for them. And if you don't tell us within 30 days, we can't fix it for you. So please, please, please make sure your roster is up to date. Your national dues payment date is going to be 30 days. And then your initiation fees payment date, figure that out with your VPPE, make sure that the two of you have that coordinated, and your budget and financial submission date. Your budget, you can attach your Excel or whatever you use, but at a high level, this should be your budget summary. And I would say at a minimum, this is what you should be sharing with your chapter to approve and make sure that they weigh in. Fundraising and sponsorships, potential sponsors. If you do have a fundraising chair, you might break this off into some work that you ask them to fill out, but at a 10 required national officers level, fundraising falls under our vice president of finance. So chapter of recognition, if you're doing that, excellence, your chapter travel fund, your leadership foundation donation, seasonal requirements, your fall and spring requirements. So make sure those are done for the appropriate time of the year. Your pledge manual order, your badge order, again, both of those are with your VPPE. If you do have a separate chair of fundraising, here's your fundraising goal. If you don't, then as VPF, here's how you're going to plan your events. You're going to say, here's the title of my event, the time and date, right? You should be setting these a semester in advance. My projected expenses at a high level, my projected income, my target audience, the dress, the location, the cost for brothers, right? This is at a very high level. This is not full out event planning form. This is okay, what am I planning to do? And then I'll blow it out into details later, okay? So you're gonna have fundraising events. If you have more than 3, you can copy this and keep going, that's fine. But typically we see 1 to 3 for a chapter. And then there's a little event review here from a DEI perspective, just a gut check that we're not planning events that are such a high out-of-pocket cost to brothers that those without means can't participate, okay? Sometimes our chapters do a fair amount of events, whether it's a ski trip or a retreat or something else that, might keep certain folks from participating, and that really changes the way that their Delta Sig experience looks compared to their peers in the chapter. So think about that as you're going through your forms. This is a reminder. And then the same thing with number of events off campus. Make sure that you've arranged transportation for folks that need it. Okay. Any questions on the VPF form? Is it recommended for new initiates to do this form mentioned? These are all recommended for officers, but they can certainly fill them out with their committees and participate in that way. All right, so our VPPE form has changed pretty significantly since the new pledge program, but essentially, you should be following the pledge program standards. So we're very clear in here, refer to the national standard program. Other events are not allowed. But you're going to choose whether or not it's a 4 or 5 week process. The days from the ceremony to initiation should be known to you. Your big and little process, how are you going to recruit bigs? How are you going to match your bigs and littles? And then your pledge meetings. So your topics are found again in that standard national program. So make sure you refer to that. And then you've got space to populate the online modules as appropriate. Okay, if it's a 4-week program, you're not going to do pledge meeting 5. If it's a 5-week program, then there you go. Your pledging manual order, you have dual responsibility on this with your VPF. Pledging ceremony itself, dual responsibility with the SVP. Make sure you get the report due or the report submitted, so know what your due date is. Your badge order, your initiation report, your initiation fees, and then your new member orientation. I have to tell you, I did a new member orientation during my visit in Capitol a week and a half ago, and the brothers loved it because they haven't had an in-person initiation for 2 years. So it really was a new member orientation for like 80% of the chapter. So if you haven't done one yet this year, work with your DD or your RVP, please, please, please. I know it's a chapter of recognition item, but do a new member orientation for your folks. I think coming out of the pandemic, we could all use it. Any questions on the VPPE template? All right, is this helpful to y'all? I'm going to go through one more and then we'll do the other forms. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for the feedback, Jacob. So strategic planning form for the VPCO, we've got, again, your goals for the semester, your CMP goal, your officer report, submission dates, your meeting minutes, local business. When are you going to create your agenda and send it to your membership, right? How many days before the meeting? How are minutes going to be submitted to the membership? When is the executive committee agenda going to be produced? Same thing with the executive committee minutes. And then your communications plan, right? As VPCO, if you do, whether or not you have a social media group or a marketing team, you at the end of the day are responsible in our policies and procedures and our bylaws for chapter communications. So make sure that you have these plans. If you have a website, when was the site last updated? Make sure it's up to date. Us alumni love to go out there and poke around. If you have a Facebook, email, Instagram, all that good jazz, make sure that those are active and easy to find you. CMP review is going to be shared with the chapter. Pick one. I hope that you choose at least bi-monthly, but make sure that you're sharing that with your chapter and your officer report. And then the CMP report template is going to be prepared and up to date. This is an Excel file that I can send to you all. It's pretty intense. It's got a lot of things built into it, but it'll help you in terms of making sure you've got all of your events done for CMP at the level that you're trying to achieve. All right, so that's it for the VPCO form. It has less items, but you are responsible along with the president for driving all of the other officers to get their CMP work done, hence the CMP review that you're responsible for. All right, let me show you the event planning form, and I know we're running over on time. I apologize. You guys were such great participants that I got a little carried away on time. So forgive me. Our event planning form, you've got your title, your date, your officer name. Ideally, you have some co-chairs or event chairs, right? You as the officer shouldn't be doing all the planning. You should be pulling from your committee and giving them leadership opportunities. Your evaluation date, that's really important. Make sure that you have your event and then you evaluate the event with, at a minimum, your committee, but ideally at the next chapter meeting. The purpose of your event, just in a sentence or two, what are you trying to accomplish? Any speaker or partner contact info. This is going to be super helpful that you do this form and then you save it on like Google Docs or a shared drive for your chapter, so that if they want to come back and maybe have the same company come in 2 or 3 years when it's a whole new set of brothers, they can do that. And they're not having to reinvent the wheel. Your work lives on. The cost breakdown, things that went well, this is your evaluation space, things that went well, areas for improvement, things we should not do again, right? So it's continue, right? Start and then stop. So oftentimes we hear start, stop, continue. We're not quite in that order, but that's what we're getting at here. Our event stats, when did we start? When did we end? How long did cleanup take us? The brothers in attendance, students in attendance, faculty in attendance, those things are going to be helpful for you filling out your hub submission and hopefully your awards, and then your officer signature and the chair signature. Kind of makes it a little more official. You can sign it electronically, but we use some similar forms in corporate world. And so I wanted you all to, again, have that opportunity to practice. The final thing that I'll show you tonight, and then I'll open it up for any questions. I will show you the chapter minutes template that we developed, and encourage you to use this. A lot of chapters kind of question how in-depth their minutes should be. And the answer really is they should kind of match a corporate meeting. So as a project manager, I have to take minutes a lot, and my notes are how we go back and hold the project accountable, right? And your chapter meeting minutes are the official record of decisions made in your chapter. So they should be at the same level or quality. So you replace anything in purple, you select anything in old gold, and this is just set up for you. So your officer reports, all these folks should always give a report each time, and your agenda is based off of the national chapter bylaws template. So if you've changed the bylaws template, certainly adjust this accordingly, but you'll see in the instructions here kind of how these items were selected to be included. So that's it. That's the toolkit that you're going to get for attending tonight. If you're watching this on the recording and you need the toolkit, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to share it. Let me put my slide up. If my computer wants to behave, let me put my slide up with my contact information, and I'll take any questions that y'all have. All right, and I apologize for our friends on the East Coast who I've kept up past 10 o'clock. So any questions, feedback? Sorry for the time length of the presentation.
Do you have, or I guess, so my question surrounds fundraising, because we've had a history of having the president of our chapter having to cover a lot of things, whether it be people's dues or event fees, just because brothers are often without means. So what would be your biggest, like the most successful fundraiser that you've seen?
Yeah, so I think the most successful fundraiser that I've seen, and Erin, feel free to share your experience as well, but the most successful fundraisers I've seen tend to be raffle giveaways or like free events. So it sounds silly, but free car washes can legitimately bring in $1,000 if you do them in the right space. In profit. I know there's a chapter at RIT, Epsilon Lambda. I was their DD when they got reactivated. They do a very successful fundraiser where they have a calendar and they get items donated from local businesses, and folks buy a raffle ticket and they pull a ticket for every day of the calendar. First day might be $20 in cash, last day might be $100 in cash, and then there's an item assigned to every single day. So it might be a gift card, it might be an Apple iPod, it might be whatever they got donated that year. But my understanding is they make a boatload off of that. So certainly you could reach out to RIT, Epsilon Lambda. They're very active on Instagram and they respond to their messages. So you could reach out to them for more information as well. But those are two that I have seen a lot. The other one that I'll encourage is particularly for brothers in need. Gamma Sigma has implemented a skull fund, and they termed it the skull fund, but it's exactly that. It is a scholarship for brothers in need to help them cover their dues, to help them cover other things. They have implemented an application process and a private interview process so that the anonymity of the brothers who are asking for help is protected. They've done a beautiful job with it, and they raised enough money from donations from their alumni to cover, I believe, 4 brothers in this first year. So Gamma Sigma University of Maryland College Park, you can also reach them on Instagram, or through their email on the national webpage, or I can put you in touch. But they've done a beautiful job with it. And so they just reached out to their alumni, right? And asked their alumni and chapter brothers, like, hey, if you're of means and you can help us out, this is what we're trying to do. And they made it happen. We really shouldn't be putting that on the president. That in and of itself is a diversity, equity, and inclusion barrier to anyone who doesn't have means and is passionate about that role, right? So I would encourage you to talk with your DD. I'm certainly happy to talk more about it, your RVP central office, about how else we can support and address that need, instead of putting it on one officer or even the executive committee as a whole, because we don't want to try to solve a problem and create a barrier as we're trying to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Other questions, feedback, concerns? Okay, my contact information is on the screen. That is my personal cell phone number. You feel free to give me a call. I do ask that you text me first if you need to chat about something Delta Sig, so I know who is calling and I can pick up the phone. Otherwise, my email's here. I'm pretty darn responsive, so don't hesitate to reach out. And I look forward to seeing you all at a future event. There was a request to meet Jordan, so I'll do that once Aaron stops the recording. But I don't put Jordan's image out there. Yeah, thank you guys so much for being engaged. I hope that this helped you, and please, if nothing else, reach out to me after you try these and let me know how it goes. I love to hear feedback from folks after these sessions. It makes it better, and I tweak the templates for the next time and for the next set of chapters. So please don't hesitate to coach back and provide that feedback, because it makes us all stronger. So thank you guys. Aaron, if you stop the recording, I'll take us upstairs.